Hello, good afternoon. You've tuned into Mutual Fund Corner on CNBC TV18 and I'm Vinnii Motiwala in the Mumbai studio. Today we're actually going to dive into a very exciting topic and an opportunity for investors that you will see. Now, Bandhan Nifty Alpha Low Volatility 30 Index Fund, which is an open-ended scheme, will be opening, and this is tracking the Nifty Alpha Low Volatility Index. Now we'll break down, its investment objectives, the unique strategy that this will be following, and how it balances the risks and returns. And before we go across to the guests, what I want to actually talk about is factor investing. That's also forming a part of this. So just to explain our viewers what factor investing is and how it actually works, there are 5 common factors that come into play. So when you look at it, there's momentum, low volatility, quality, value and size. Now we'll be talking about all of this with our guest for today, and to guide us on this discussion we have our special guest, who is Sirshendu Basu, head of products at Bandhan AMC, to talk to us about all of this. And let's get started and uncover what this fund has to offer. Very good afternoon, Mr. Basu. Thank you so much for joining in with us on CNBC TV18. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Like I was just talking about right now, before we dive into the fund, basic concept of factor investing, that's also very important to understand. So, if you could start by explaining factor investing, how does that actually differ from traditional active as well as passive strategies that we see?
Sure. At the very outset, a very good afternoon to all of you, and very happy to be on the show. Now, factor investing, if you look at it, it's an investment strategy that selects securities based on certain special attributes of factors. Like you mentioned, value, momentum, low volatility, etc. And unlike traditional active strategies, which focuses and relies on stock picking by managers, or even passive funds, which intends to replicate an underlying index, factor investing, by systematically and in a rule-based manner investing into specific attributes, tries to generate returns. And that's how it becomes a unique strategy for investors.
Okay, those are the factors, and that's how it actually becomes a very unique strategy for investors versus just active or passive strategies that you normally see. But Mr. Basu, what makes, and getting to the fund now, so what makes that Nifty Alpha Low Volatility 30 Index a very unique investment option for the investors? And given the current market situation, why is it so important right now?
Well, actually, this strategy, which is the Nifty Alpha Low Vol 30, combines 2 core factors, right? And, more importantly, 2 complementary factors, namely alpha and low vol. Now, alpha performs during up cycles and low vol outshines during market downturn or down cycles. And therefore, this strategy ideally blends across these 2 complementary factors to generate a portfolio or a strategy which actually focuses on superior alpha return with lower volatility. Now, at this current market scenario where we are all reeling and concerned with the heightened volatility, this strategy makes uber sense, because on one side, low volatility tries to protect the downside in this strategy, and on the other side, alpha readies this strategy for a pullback once it happens, making it a very, very relevant strategy at this point in time.
Okay, and just furthermore, in terms of how does the fund combine, a bit more in detail, the alpha as well as the low volatility factors, and are they, what are you expecting in terms of benefits because of this coming in?
Well, absolutely. And in this case, now the 2 factors actually add up to 11 rather than 2. Now, if I look at the Nifty Alpha Low Vol 30 Index, the underlying universe comprises of the top 150 top 150 market capitalized companies, which includes all the 100 large cap companies, alongside that 50 mid capitalized companies out here. For each of these companies, their individual alpha score as well as a low volatility score is calculated. Then a composite score is derived, and from that score, the top 30 stocks are chosen to create this index. And this index is actually rebalanced semi-annually. And therefore, what we get is a very balanced strategy focusing on risk as well as optimizing return.
Okay. Mr. Basu, let's just talk about the Bandhan's fund now, the new fund that you all are coming out with as well. Talk to us more about this. It is following this, volatility index, right? The Nifty Alpha Volatility 30 index. So what is the new fund about?
Absolutely. So the Bandhan Nifty Alpha Low Vol 30 replicates the Nifty Alpha Low Vol 30 index. The NFO began on 8th of January and will be on till 20th of January. And an investor can invest in this fund in a lump sum as with as low as 1,000 rupees and can begin a SIP with as low as 100 rupees out share.
Okay, that's about the fund right now. But on that note, we're going to actually, slip into a very short break. On the other side of the break, we'll continue the discussion with Mr. Basu on the new fund offering and what more is there for that. So stay tuned in for that.
That's okay. फिर से ट्राई करते हैं।
जो फाइनेंशियली सिक्योर हैं, वो मिस्टेक्स से सीखना अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं। बंधन म्यूचुअल फंड, बढ़ते रहो।
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना से संबंधित सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
टिप चाहिए? पैसा लगाना है? तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ। डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा और मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ? सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
Imagine your dream car in electric, in an SUV. Presenting Maruti Suzuki's first electric e-Vitara, the SUV e-born.
The codes and standards related to fire are one of the most stringent in India. You can compare it with NFPA, you can compare it with anywhere else. They are prepared by the fire officer, they're prepared by the industry. The National Building Code is a classic example of what we have.
Polycab and CNBC TV18 present Infra Safety, powering India's electrical future.
Welcome back to MF Corner on CNBC TV18. We still have with our guest with us, Mr. Sirshendu Basu, on their new fund offering that's coming in from Bandhan side, and to talk to us about that. Mr. Basu, let's continue our conversation. And now, since you've introduced the fund to us before ending the last segment, now we'll get into it and deep dive into it. The Nifty Alpha Volatility 30 Index that is flowing, and what is the bottom-up approach that you're following here in terms of a strategy? Could you explain how does this actually impact in terms of stock selection? What is it, and why is it that this is the method that is selected for this?
Sure. See, by taking this bottom-up approach to this multi-factor strategy, each stock is judged here basis of the underlying factors, and the stock that scores the highest in both the factors are actually selected. In the case of our fund, which is the Bandhan Nifty Alpha Low Vol 30, the underlying factors of alpha and low vol, each score for the funds and for the stocks are taken into account. And once we have the composite score and the top 30 from the 150 stocks universe are selected to create this. Now, what we get in the process is a portfolio which is focused on, or stocks which focus on delivering superior alpha, but with lower volatility. A very ideal kind of a combination which one looks at with optimization in return, maximization in return and optimization in risk, as we can see. Now, this strategy, if I may give an analogy on how this is very kind of an opportune and apt, is when one is driving in a highway, right? We want to cruise at a higher speed and we accelerate, right? Alpha part in the strategy is the accelerator in this car. And to ensure that the journey is safe, we have the brake therein, and that's the low volatility. This combination of accelerator and brake, which ensures a smooth journey, is what is replicated in this strategy by combining the benefits of focus on higher return through alpha and being grounded and taking care of risk through the low volatility. And therefore, each of these stocks which are selected out here tend to score higher in both these factors. And therefore, that kind of adds up to this portfolio's whole endeavor to provide a better risk-adjusted return. This is how we feel that this strategy is reasonably unique in its approach towards risk and return and can form part of an individual's portfolio.
Right. Mr. Basu, with a tilt coming in towards more on the FMCG and healthcare sectors, how does the fund ensure more diversification? And, in the current market scenario, how do you see that moving as well?
See, one of the interesting part of this strategy is that it does ensure sectoral diversification. While, since the strategy optimizes on risk and return, there are certain sectors which historically have generated superior return with lower volatility. And by virtue of that, those sectors tend to have a higher weightage in this strategy and in this index. But having said that, depending upon the market cycle, there are sectors which come up. The sectors which outperform at certain point in time do find their way in this portfolio. As you rightly mentioned, that FMCG and healthcare tends to have a higher weightage out here, but we have seen sectors such as consumer discretionary, information technology, and even financial services having higher weight. When we look at the trend of the sectoral weights, we have seen that, depending upon the sector's cycle, individual sectors have got higher weights in this portfolio. So therefore, there is a very strong sectoral rotation which tends to happen out here. That's one aspect of it. The other point is that it also takes into account market cap rotation. Since it comprises of a universe of large cap and mid cap stocks, the market cap rotation across large and mid is quite evident out here. Case in point, if I may take an example, in, let's say, September 2022, at that point in time, this fund had about 93% allocation towards large cap and about 7% towards mid cap. Cut to the current situation, it has about an 84% allocation towards large cap and about 16% allocation to mid cap. So within that, universe, there is this rotation across market cap as well as the sectoral rotation which we spoke about is there. So which enables an investor to take care of the various aspects of an economic cycle, be it from a sector angle or from a market cap angle, being taken care of in this strategy.
Right, obviously you gave us that sector exposure as well and how we are actually diversifying on that front. Mr. Basu, just one quick follow-up that I want to also know in terms of how does this measure up against something that you look at it in terms of a large cap fund? How do we put that in place?
See, the universe, as I mentioned, is 150, of which it has the top 100 market capitalized companies. So therefore, the tilt is towards large cap. Definitely out here because mid cap has 50 stocks out here. But during periods, we have observed that the mid cap exposure going up to about 25% as well, 20-25% as well, and the large cap being around 70-75 as well. And in extreme situation of volatility and market scenario, the large cap moves up to about 93-94% as well. So therefore, what an investor should look at through this strategy is one which is anchored towards the large cap, a strategy which looks at the companies which are generating alpha or superior return vis-a-vis the market and are hawk-eyed on the volatility aspect and scoring high on low volatility parameter as well. This combination, in fact, at this current market scenario, makes it a tactical strategy as well.
Okay. Just in terms of the fund, what I'm seeing is that the minimum application amount for the fund is relatively low. Was this specially designed to attract more retail investors, and how does this align with the Bandhan Mutual Fund's broader strategy?
Oh, thanks, Vinnii, for that. That's a great observation. In fact, we endeavor to keep the minimum investment as low as possible to ensure and promote inclusion out here. And it also augurs well with Bandhan Mutual Fund's, whole philosophy of helping savers to become investor by keeping the, entry point very, very low. So that's how, we look at the minimum application amount, both for lump sum, which is 1,000 rupees in this case, and for SIP is as low as 100 rupees.
Right. Mr. Basu, what I'm also noticing, when you look at the Nifty Alpha Volatility, the Low Volatility 30 Index, that seems like, that has actually historically outperformed that broader indices when you look at it. Can you share some bit more in terms of this retail, specifically in terms of risk as well as the adjusted returns? And if you compare that to something like a single factor indices?
Sure. So firstly, I'll deal it with the broader market indices. This particular index has outperformed the Nifty 100 as well as the Nifty Midcap 50, which forms its universe, on a rolling return 3-year, 5-year basis, quite distinctively, right? And quite consistently as well. Now, what is even more heartening to note is that when we compare this index with the standalone factors of alpha as well as low vol, it actually has been able to deliver superior risk-adjusted return. Now, let's take and compare it with alpha. When we compare a standalone alpha factor with the alpha low vol 30 index, what we observe that the volatility in this index is 50% lower than the standard or standalone alpha factor, and the return is reasonable when compared, not as high as alpha, but quite reasonable when compared with alpha. On the other side, let's compare with low volatility. While the volatility is little higher when compared with low volatility, but the return is more than commensurate to that, right? Now, in the process, what do we get? We get a strategy which is, quite better from a risk-adjusted return standpoint across most time period when compared with those individual factors of alpha and low volatility. And that's the reason why I mentioned that it is not alpha plus low volatility, which would make to 2. It is alpha and low vol combined together, which makes it 11.
Okay. Mr. Basu, how does the fund aim to actually provide stability during this market volatility that we're seeing currently? How does that work?
So this inclusion of low vol, as we mentioned that low vol forms an integral part of the strategy, and low vol, in fact, performs better during market correction or in down cycle. So during periods of market volatility, such as what we are witnessing currently, the low volatility part of the strategy ensures that the impact on the downside is kind of in control and reduced. At the same point in time, alpha aspect, which is outperformance vis-a-vis market, ensures that once the market stabilizes and we start seeing a pullback and up move, that factor takes the lead and ensures that the returns are superior. So therefore, during uncertain market scenarios, during volatile period, as well as during periods of up move, this strategic combination of 2 core and complementary factors of alpha and low volatility ensure that we have a strategy which stands tall across all market scenarios and across all market cycles.
Okay. Mr. Basu, a quick one is in terms of, I want to know, top 3 reasons for investing and, for an investor to look at this fund.
Well, absolutely. The low volatility part of the strategy ensures that the risk reduction and risk optimization is kind of is very well taken into account. On the other side, alpha, which by itself focuses on generating superior return versus the benchmark, ensures that the return maximization aspect is taken into account. And both put together makes a very, very, I would say, pertinent strategy and more importantly, as I mentioned, a tactical strategy at this point in time for investors to look at in one single fund, have the benefit of, higher return with lower volatility. As I mentioned, for a smooth drive, you need the accelerator, which is alpha out here, and you need the brakes to control risk. Low vol is that brake in the strategy, ensuring you have a smooth investment ride.
This is going to be ensuring you have a smooth investment ride, a mix of both, right? You are going to get good returns as well. Volatility, adjusting and managing the risk, as well as there's alpha also. So yes, that is something that will drive the car further. But Mr. Basu, firstly, thank you so much for joining in with us this afternoon on CNBC TV18. It's a pleasure having you on the show and having a quick chat with you on the new fund that is launched by Bandhan. That is a Bandhan Nifty Alpha Volatility 30 Index Fund that is opened up on 8th of January 2025 and will be continuing till 20th of January 2025. This is mainly in terms of an investment objective is the scheme will be replicating the Nifty Alpha Low Volatility 30 Index by investing in securities that are the Nifty in the Nifty Alpha Low Volatility Index. Same productivity. This is going to be a mix of both alpha as well as low volatility index. And obviously, this will be adjusting to risk. Now, in terms of the pricing also, SIPs can start at rupees 100 and lump sum purchase price is rupees 1,000. We spoke about all of this in terms of details with the manager, the Bandhan AMC, Mr. Basu as well in terms of the details. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Mutual Fund Corner on CNBC TV18. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, we have Closing Bell to take you through the action of the markets in the last hour of trade.